What's up? What's up? Johnny Megan 45 here. Welcome back to Corpse Party Blood, right? Yes, in the last chapter, chapter 6, we see some stupid shit like Satsuki died because of stupid Yuka for leaving her friend behind. She did say that she don't live by her side, but she left her. She left Satsuki. What a stupid girl, Yuka-chan. Okay? So now we're at chapter 7. Well, in the last episode we see only Ayumi managed to run away, as seen from the chapter. What happened to Margari? We also don't know. Bloodjoy chapter 7 Determination. I think this is where Ayumi has made her very good decision in her life for one time. So now we're gonna see the post-mortem of this big event. So let's see.
この世の終わりです。
Yeah, this is the end of the world already. Yeah, I say many times already. The sounds of fire trucks and petrol cars echoed through the streets. The sky was dark, the air still, and the many strong, cold gusts of wind bore massive mounds of dust and debris. I didn't envy the reporter her job, as she sees mere moments from being blown off her feet. To her credit, she was persevered. Behind her, there was a black shadow of an old man.
お伝えしております。昨夜、治安当局の発表した全国怨霊災害の続報についてです。
The outside is very dangerous, and yet you don't report outside. You are a very brave woman.
先日より各地で多発している不可解な死亡事件は依然収束の兆しが見えません。不審死や動機不明の無差別殺人、心霊目撃件数は増える一方です。
Wow, from that little dot is already spreaded all across the world. Wow.
そのため各県警は対応に苦慮。なかなか公式発表を出さない警察に報道陣は苛立ちを隠せません。
This is a very troublesome disease. It's like COVID-19 attacking the entire area. The old man's shadows in the background began acting strangely, jumping in place and making various other endless motions.
警視庁はなるべく一人にならないように必ず3名以上で安全な場所で過ごすよう、また危険ですので外出も控えるようにと呼びかけています。
Remain indoor until further notice, but you don't remain indoor, woman. I hope you die soon.
昨晩より全国各地で発生している巨大な黒い柱による出現被害につきまして、国土交通省は非常態勢の災害対策本部および警戒本部を設置しました。
Oh yeah, what happened to the PL Promotions company since Kon Sensei died? What happened then?
各地方整備局管内の情報に基づく交通・河川の被災状況および対策状況は次の通りです。
柱の成分は専門家の分析でも解析不明の未知の鉱物の結晶のようでエンティティウォール、霊体物質と名付けられています。地震計などでも全く予測のつかない場所に突如生えてくるため多数の死傷者を出し世間を混乱に陥れています。工事用カッターの刃も通らず撤去もできない状況です。防衛庁は自衛隊の調査結果などから先日まで上空に浮かんでいた黒い球体との関連を調査しています。
新しい避難場所の情報です。避難指示の出た地域にお住まいの方は以下の情報をチェックしてください。携帯サイト、ウェブサイトでも情報を発信しております。なお、ご覧の白い地域にある体育館や学校はすでに満員です。お近くの空きのある施設へ向かってください。
っていうか前兆も速報もなくいきなり生えてくるんだ。避難も対策もねえんだよ。運が悪きが死ぬだけだ。なんで警察はいつまでも公式発表してないんだよ。変身不祥事と取られるのが嫌なのか、それとも何か隠してるのか。
The village announcer was yelling at the top of his lungs. And in absolutely frenzy, he kicked his studio desk to the ground. A black shadow of a woman could be seen behind him.
委員長。
Ew, what did she get? Ayumi, where's your mother?
あゆみちゃん。
篠崎さん。
How come you four are here?
生き返らせてくれてありがとう。
Wait, what? I believe you both have no faces. Anyways, Seiko's reflection on the mirror.
だけどもっといっぱい死んじゃったね。
Oops! The room grew dark, and each of the four figures who stood before me slowly melted into the blackness, becoming instinctively Shilelte, Shilishao, Shilhuletes.
持田も中島も岸沼も
Because of you. So do something, Ayumi. What are you doing watching television and grieve for your mistakes?
たくさん。
死んじゃったね。
あれ、私たちも
生き返ってないよ。
あゆみちゃん。
何がしたかったの？
I screamed and looked up. It was just a dream. I was at home watching TV. I scrunched myself up again and putting my face to my knees.
生き返るって
Bring them back.
生き返るって信じてたのに最初からダメだった。そうよ、私は全部意味のないことをしてたんだ。私どうすればいいの？生き返るって思って生き返るって思ったから吉江の家まで行って大怪我をしてお姉ちゃんまで失って帰ってきたのに。
I raised my face from my knees, eyes red and burning. Then, as if I had already enough tragedy in my life, I heard a loud crash just outside my house. It was unmistakably by a car wreck, and a rather severe one, but at that. I don't give a shit about outside work. I want my friends back. How do I do that? The car's alarm was going on, but I was trying my best to ignore it. I didn't need this right now, so I simply wasn't going to bother with it. Kill yourself, Ayumi. Yeah, that will solve your problem.
お姉ちゃん。
Ooh.
「次のニュースです。公益財団法人 PL 振興社の会長が失踪しました。
Yes, and that's why I'm asking, who's the replacement of Miss Kwon as the CEO of PL Promotions Corporation? Okay. I need to get to the front door. Oh, come on. Can I go up here? There's no reason for me to go upstairs right now. I want to stay up there. Your face looked really... The car alarm outside was still going off, and it was getting harder and harder to ignore it by the second. And who pressed the bell? Whoever was ringing my doorbell was really persistent. The irregular sound brought me back to reality. I creeped over to the peephole and silently looked through it to see who be visiting me at this hour. I don't think you should do that because the eye is very creepy. And also, Ayumi, don't open the door. Never open the door to strangers. On the other side of the door stood a man I didn't recognize. He had short hair and he was pressing the chain frantically as if his life depended on it.
誰？
I was kind of creeped out.
やっぱり出ないでおこう。
I moved away from the peephole. Stop doing that! Stupid man! The priest said The persistent ringing continued for a bit, but then thankfully came to an abrupt halt. I slowly creeped back to the peephole and took another look. The man was still there. He was just pacing back and forth in place in front of a house that, for all he knew, had no occupants. After another shower, he approached the door again and immediately put his eyes right to the outside of the peephole.
今動いたら気配で私が覗いていることがバレちゃう。
The man moved his head away but quickly replaced it with his finger, which he swirled round and round inside the tightly spaced as he tried to reach my eyes or poke it out. Then he stepped away from the door. I could have taken this opportunity to slow move away from the peephole, but I was oddly transfixed.
よかった。このまま帰ってくれれば。
Of course, the second I thought that, he came back to the door yet again. And yet again he skipped the doorbell and went straight for the peephole.
何なの？なんで何も言わないの？気持ち悪いな。開けて文句言っちゃう。
No, don't! I grabbed the doorknob and was moment away from following through with that plan when suddenly...
Ayumi?
Sachiko!
Sachiko?
How did you come here? How did you... Very physical and you're floating like a ghost.
ダメ、開けちゃ。そいつ死者だ。
Nani?
Sachiko?
I slowly turned to look at her.
涅槃は死んだ人の世界。死後の世界がこっちに来る。
Then there was an oddly familiar sound. Another car accident again right outside my door. This time I looked outside through the peephole and saw the man from earlier sandwiched in between the car and the wall of one of the houses across the street. He was absolutely mangled. But after only a few moments, the man's corpse disappeared, leaving nothing but a shadow in his place on the wall and ground like a black string. Don't scream.
何なの？世の中どうなってるの？
Not that I even really had to ask.
私が涅槃の壁を壊したから。
I wasn't just asking myself, I was asking Sachiko, whose presence still remained just behind my back. I think you know the answer. But she just looked up at me with sad eyes.
今の人も死者真っ黒になって。 Oh yeah! She's tried to check all of her friends' faces. I believe all of them have become blackened because they all died. No, it couldn't be. I put my smartphone in my pocket and forces myself to remain calm enough to access the photos, but then just stop and stare. Ayumi, keep quiet! You won't make other people know that you are here. The photo display my photo which was now on the floor. No longer had just my friends from before with blacking out faces, but Mochida, Nakashima and Kishinuma as well. Someone beat the sense out of Ayumi, please. I hope someone come from any door there. I pounded the floor with both hands and shuddered violently.
悔い改めよ。
Oh come on, this is not the priest thinking, right?
世界は終わりに近づいている。 神は不浄なる不心得者を決してお許しにはならぬ。
Some cultist groups were speaking on TV. I guess the news must have ended at some point when I wasn't paying attention.
世界の終わり。
This time I was just plain talking to myself.
そう、終わりよ。まさか、ヤゴウラの最後の生き残りが自爆覚悟でこんなこと考えてるなんてね。
And Marguerite, you come from the living room. Wait, what? And I believe how she survived. When she's falling from the tower itself, I believe she used the After Stone to teleport to the real world before the screw collapsed. So that's why I believe Marguerite survived that thing. But now she's here. Wait, did she was hiding in the living room all the time? Or she just came from out of nowhere then through the window? We never know. Marguerite appeared in my hallway. I had no idea how long she's been there, nor how she got it in. I know she still had her heels on though. It's you. I stood up, and Sachiko was as always waiting in the wings behind me.
幸せの石で帰ってこれたわ。金付き堂の階段から吹き抜けを落ちている間にね。
Yeah, I figured as much. No wonder she survived.
まあ、天神症が壊れたからこの石は使えないけど。
So that was the Marguerite snapped the two together, and we can all go back to school again.
涅槃よ、死人を迎えよ。ほらね。
I probably fainted, but she was right. Nothing happened.
世界はもう数刻のうちに混沌に包まれて死の世界になる。あっけないでしょ。まさにこの世の終わりってやつ。ちなみにあれ、私の教団アレンジでしょ。我ながら引くわ。
She pulled back her chin and flashes me a strange smile.
ああ、そういえばあなたの親もイカれて入信してたわよ。
Oh, no wonder she was alone in the room. Their parents joined up for the cult thingy. How did you know? How did you know? This day could have been much worse for me.
あなた、このままでいいわけ？
Marguerite wasn't mincing words, it seemed. No, I don't want to do anything. I held my head in both hands and looked down at the ground.
責任を感じてるなら、ちょっと顔貸しなさい。あんたの血に話がある。
Marguerite approached me and grabbed my arms. Uh-oh, Sachiko hit it. Sachiko still right behind me, began to growl like a guard dog.
話してよ。どうせ私なんか友達も救えない。何もできない。篠崎の血だか知らないけど、私にできることなんて何もないよ。大体、涅槃をこの世に出したのはヨシエさんが最初にやったことじゃない。
I screamed as loudly as fiercely as I could.
私、悪くないじゃない。
I closed my eyes and cried the hardest I had ever cried, sobbing so intensely that I found myself nearly hyperventilating. Slap her. Well done. Marguerite slapped me down to the ground.
ムカつく女ね。あなた等身大すぎるわ。少しは格好つけようとなさいよ。
I held my cheek and continued sobbing. Marguerite was looking down on me with contempt in her eyes, but also a certain intensity that seemed more akin to desperation than anything.
篠崎あゆみ、真実を一つ教えるわ。 7番目の柱。知識のセフィラの起動を止められなかった時点で、もう世界の終わりは動かない。だけど。
However, are you trying to kiss her? Come, kiss her. I want to see another way out. Yeah, kiss her. Give her some. But it's still cute, by the way. I like lesbian, by the way. Margaret closed in on me as if our lips were about to touch. Don't kiss her, you stupid Matubas. Sachiko growled again, but Margaret was clearly not intimidated in the slightest.
ブック・オブ・シャドウズはまだ失われていない。あの本を手にした篠崎の血を引くあなたならミストとまだ戦えるかもしれないわ。
I was still hesitating, and Margaret apparently didn't much like that.
ふざけやがって。
Suddenly Margaret was pulling out the top of my uniform. Oh! Don't tell me the Book of Shadow is inside Ayumi's stomach. My plump white stomach was now fully exposed.
クソったれの本はここにあるわ。
She pointed to a spot just below my belly button. As she did so, my stomach started growling with an unearthly roar and shifted in place slightly. It was almost like there was a snake slithering around inside of me.
まったく、もっと早く気づけばよかったわ。篠崎義恵の家の地下で力を使ってから、そこに潜り込んで眠ってやがったのよ、そいつは。
Wait, what? How did that book enter inside her belly? I still don't get it. Margaret crossed her arms and snorted.
ただし、あくまで入れ物で、中身は空っぽだけどね。
Content, what do you mean by that?
生意気にうなってやんの。
The growl that came from within my own body sounded like that of a wild beast.
まさか本当に？
ほんと、すっかり騙されたわ。私は本来、教団からあなたがあの空間でブック・オブ・シャドウズを手に入れるためのサポート役。それと、その他雑用のために派遣されていたのよ。
そうなの？
って言っても、手に入れた瞬間、奪い取るつもりだったけどね。まあ、それも、今となってはどうでもいいわ。世界が壊れるのなら、教団の継承権もクソもないし。ただね、ムカつくのよ。ミストよ。ミスト。あれで勝ったつもりでいるなんて、笑っちゃうわよね。そんなあいつを思いっきりなぶり殺してやりたいでしょ。あなたも甘ったれずにできることに目を向けなさい。可能性を放棄するのは死んだ後でいい。
For one time, I agree with Margaret's word. Stop being such a pussy. My eyes began to well out yet again.
私にまだ何かできることがあるの
Margaret's expression turned deadly serious.
なんとしても、ブック・オブ・シャドウズを体の外に出して支配なさい。本があなたの覚悟を認めれば自然と出てくるわ。
Well said, Margaret.
そして本の力があればミストのいる涅槃にもう一度乗り込む道も示されるでしょうよ。
Wait. What are you doing? Why you open the door? There's still the man out there. I could only stare incredulously at my abdomen. Margaret took this opportunity to open my front door again to illustrate her point. Outside, the weather was still completely anomalous, with hurricane-like winds and debris clouds everywhere. The clouds up above too were moving abnormally fast enough through a disconcerting blood-red sky. Sorry for interruption. Even a few seconds, a sound not likely a spark plug fire could be heard echoing from the distance as another black flame ignited and burned itself out in some random spot.
どのみちあなたも世界と共に滅びて死ぬわ。だったら見せてみなさい。その前にあなたの覚悟を。黒魔術から生まれたその本は残酷と血を好む。
With those parting words, Marguerite disappeared into the city. The sounds of her heels cracking softer and softer until they were no longer audible at all. Sachika and I could do nothing but see her off. The entire nation was now plagued with entity walls and black shillings out like spirits of the dead. Why you scream? The entity walls were rapidly destroying schools, downtown bypasses, and other crucial traffic cornerstones. And even rescue shelters, creating countless new casualties by the minute. People were running in the streets, panicking and confused, and almost certainly not much longer for this earth.
いいから走れ！潰される！国外は？海も空も動いてないよ！
Meanwhile, in Miss Kwan's office, the Black Suit agents watch in horror as each TV monitor displayed feedback from a different news network across the world, and the story was exactly the same on all of them.
会長、私たちはどうすればよいのですか？
We should die. We should all go die. How is a book supposed to recognize my determination? What the hell am I supposed to do? Okay, let's enter to our room. I believe this is our room. Oh, there's a safe here. Hey, this is not our room, this is Hinoi's room. Okay, we're gonna save. Of course, save at this point means nothing to us actually, but still worth it, save. I'm gonna use this save. Let's take this! This is a good thing!
お姉ちゃん、私に力を貸して。
In front of the mirror dress said, Hinoi's zodiac daggers. I grip it in terror, closed my eyes, and started shaking.
なんとしてもブックオブシャドウズを体の外に出して支配なさい。
Am I thinking what I'm thinking? Yes, she's going to stab her own stomach and bleed out and die.
黒魔術から生まれたその本は残酷と血を好むわ。
I couldn't back down now. I lifted the dagger in front of me, poised to plug it into my body and cut myself open as samurai once did in the ritualistic suicide called seppuku. What are you waiting for? Just do it! But I couldn't go through it. I was too scared of that, too scared of the pain. The face that reflected back at me in the mirror was twisted with fear. I didn't even recognize myself. But I could see in those eyes all the weight that had been put on my shoulders, all the responsibility I've been forced to bear.
臆病で矮小で弱くてこんな自分さえいなければここで決別するのよ。
My mind was made up. I lifted the dagger again, only to bring it halfway to its destination before halted its descent once more. No matter how determined I was, no matter how strong my conviction, this was literally suicide. I knew what had to be done, but knowing and accepting are two different things. I began crying like a baby. This was the most afraid I ever been in my entire life, and almost certainly the most afraid I ever would be. At this point, the only way I'd be able to go through with it was to clear my mind and let my arms make the motions automatically, and before I knew it, that's exactly what I did. It's most likely because I wasn't thinking about it, or anything else for that matter, that the dagger found absolutely no resistance. It was like applying excess force to slice a cake. For a very brief moment, I felt nothing, but then the convulsion started, first in my abdomen, then quickly spread it up to the rest of my body. My abdomen was now spasming and constricting involuntarily, and the rest of me was faring much better. My entire body was in total chaos. The extent of the agony I felt at that moment was absolutely impossible to convey. It was all encompassing. I was utterly incapable of focusing on anything else. My lower body was spewing bright red blood, thick black blood, and an unknown yellow substance, all of which were bleeding together into a slurry that was at its core my left accent. Oh, this went far beyond anything I could ever imagine. The sheer shock of it rendered my mind a jumble that I simply could not untangle. I knew there was a reason I'd done this to myself, something I absolutely had to do, and it was a crucial, but regaining enough cognitive function to do it would be a challenge. My head was swimming as I tried beyond all reasonable measure to hang on to consciousness just long enough to complete the task at hand. I could still see my face in the mirror, but only just as the blood that had been spurted from my abdomen had largely glazed it over. It was a truly frightful sight, comparable to, if not more disturbing than anything I'd seen in Heavenly Hosts. I felt feeble, helpless, and the face in the mirror was smiling at me for it, darkly, obscenely. You can't do it. Oh, the book is speaking. The Book of Shadows. Jet black crows flew by outside the window, and in that moment, a fire sparked within me. Feeling oddly resolute, I gripped the dagger shooting out from my abdomen. I yanked it to the side with every last bit of strength I had left in me. The spray of blood gushing out of me became almost exponentially more violent. Most surprisingly, it seems like equal amounts of blood were rushing to my brain as well, and the effect was a feeling like the blood vessels in my head were on the verge of bursting. But just as I felt like I was moments from my final blackout, I saw something that, among my own interests on the ground, was a blood-drenched tombe. It was the Book of Shadows, without question. Finally, I saw you. After so long. My vision blurred from the intense loss of blood and even more intense pain. I fell forward, unable to maintain any semblance of balance any longer. And I landed right on it with a loud, warm, and unpleasant splash. My face planted firmly into the book, which was steaming under the odd temperature differentials to my viscera. I'm alive! I woke with a start. I was still in Hinoi's room. Instinctively and frantically, I looked down at my abdomen. There I saw a scar resembling the ones I almost died from during the blowback at Yoshi's Shinozaki's house. Runic letters and all, but that was it. The bleeding had stopped. In fact, there was no blood anywhere in the room, and on the floor in front of me sat the Book of Shadows. Not a copy, but the original. I slowly touched it, and from behind me, Sachiko spoke. She was staring at me with a docile, almost revenant look in her eyes. I picked up the book and looked at it, fear and awe running through my now clear head. It grumbled a bit, darting its eyes back and forth. Eventually, it seems to settle on a specific direction, locking its gaze.
No.
It seems to be looking out the window.
きっと涅槃の入り口。
あの方向、如月学園だわ。
Yes, let's go back to the school. We must save everyone.
帰ってきてたの？もうお父さん。
No, they are darkening also.
世界はもう終わりました。
世界はもう終わりました。
お父さん、お母さん。
Never mind, ignore them. We don't need to save the dead people. Let's go out.
きっと私帰ってくるからね。
Unfortunately, Ayumi, you are not gonna come back in the real world after this. No more for you. Sachiko looked at me with three innocent eyes. Run! When I arrived at Kisarage Academy, I got a much better look at the phenomenon. It was like a whirlpool with red dully shining hole in its center. Was this the entrance to the ever after?
この先に涅槃が。法的魔法？魔女みたいに空を飛ぶの？嘘だ。
I closed my eyes, glanced at the book or shadow slightly in both hands, and prayed.
力を貸して。
And open my eyes again and look up into the sky. My body began floating. I was in control of the book of shadows. I was a legitimate practitioner of magic now. The moment felt almost like an awakening to endless new possibilities.
これ本当に飛んでる。すごい。
And right next to me, flying by my side, was Sachiko.
Ayumi.
The momentary loss of focus dropped me out of my trance, and I immediately began falling. While Sachiko turned towards something, I gripped the book even tightly and concentrated harder than before, and sure enough, I began rising up toward the vortex once more.
気をつけて。あなたが力を使えるのはその本のおかげ。絶対離しちゃダメ。
分かった。
As I flew higher, I could see Margaret sitting on the roof of the school.
ブックオブシャドウスを従えたようね。見直したわ、篠崎あゆみ。それにしても、如月学園の真上に涅槃へのエスカレーターがあるなんてね。ついでにもう一つ教えてやるとね、涅槃がこの世界に侵食して繋がってしまったのは別にあなただけのせいじゃない。涅槃天神症がこの世に発生してしまった時点で、いいえ、もっと以前にブックオブシャドウズが生み出されてしまった時に、いつかこの時が来ることは決まっていた。
I looked into Margaret's face. She was being completely sincere.
その本の元の所有者も篠崎義恵もみんなそれを食い止めようと、あるいは遅らせようと必死だったの。それが次世代へつなぐだけの運命であったのね。そうやって代々受け継いできたのよ。
そうだったの。
だから言ってみれば、あなたがいようといまいといずれこうなったわ。ただあなたの行為はあの狂信者集団ヤゴウラ教会の生き残りミストに涅槃のパワーを与えてしまった。その責任は取らなきゃいけないわ。責任。あなたには本物のブックオブシャドウズ天神症で分散していた涅槃の力はミストの持つ偽物に取り込まれてしまった。でもそれを取り戻してその本に封印すれば、あんなもの簡単に吹っ飛ばせる。そして涅槃のコアをも迎え入れられたなら、その本は完璧なものとなる。さあ反撃よ。食らわしてやりなさい。
Yes, fuck him up. In his ass.
世界が終わる前に一発ぐらい本物の実力ってやつをね。私は見ているわ。
Margaret grew smaller as I climbed higher and higher, and as I looked up, I could see the threshold looming ever larger, posed as if to wrap itself around me. Aren't you scared?
怖い？
Figure as much.
死ぬの怖い？怖いかな。
I smiled at her, and to my surprise, it was a genuine smile. Somehow or another, I was feeling very calm. Sachiko looked at me with wide eyes.
どうしたの？
She turned away briefly, then looked over at me once more. It almost seemed like in that brief moment she changed expressions in much the way someone would change a suit.
あゆみ、怖いのはサチと涅槃のコアにいる人。気をつけて。
And the person in the Nirvana's core. Unfortunately, did Ayumi fight Sachi in this game? I'm not sure. Let's just see.
涅槃のコアにいる人？それはミストじゃなくて。
うん、別にいる。
Yeah, there's someone else. I looked back up to find myself practically right on top of the hole in the sky that stood in front of the abnormally huge red moon. And with my conviction settled, I jumped in. The harsh flash, the nausea, and the retching tightness in my chest caused me to lose consciousness for a second. But then I awoke to find that heaven and earth had switched places. It looked as though I were falling head first into a massive storm with flashing lightning and roaring thunder. It almost seems like I was previewing what the world would look like after its destruction. In the sky, there was an enormous face of a door, and the walls around me were all made of flesh. I clenched the Book of Shadows with both hands as I slowly made my landing in this new version of the Nirvana. It was a mountain of rubble.
Nani kore? 完全に壊れてる。いったー。何よもう。
あゆみ、大丈夫？
平気だよ。これくらい。
I slowly carefully found my footing and pulled myself back up to my feet. This was an entirely different heavenly host. It bore almost no resemblance whatsoever to any version of the school we traversed previously.
天神小学校がこんな姿に。みんなは
They're all dead.
町田くん、中島さん、岸沼くん、クオン先生、愛子さん。
I called out to my friends but received no answers. Are you forget Aiko got eaten by the big fish? Are you stupid, Ayumi? All I could hear was the rumbling and twisting of the air around me. Can I move now? They are there! You see that? That was so horrific sight. And then Terrace is beside the course. Who is this? Kazuki Munakata. Crushed by a piece of a school. Wait, what are you doing here? How come you're here? See, look! We got... Mizuto. Is that Mizuto? No, Mizuto would not be dead. We got Satoshi, Yoshiki, Aiko, Naomi, and of course that is Kon Sensei. There was no mistaking it. In the midst of the wreckage, pieces of clothing from Kishinuma, Moshida, Nakashima, Mizuko, and Aiko were clearly visible. And the unfortunate souls who were wearing this clothing were all buried under fallen beams and other debris and surrounded by a veritable sea of blood. I too late. I need I began sobbing uncontrollably. You want revenge, Ayumi? No, I don't allow that. Sachiko stared at me as I continued to scream and cry.
Ayumi? 幸子頑張ってみる。天神小学校の運命だったら、ちょっとなら戻せるかもしれない。
Sachiko produced a calavera necklace from her pocket. I know that doll! The skeleton figure on the chain made a slight hollow clicking sound as it was handled very much as actual bumblebee. It looked handmade and seems oddly warm like a keepsake. We know that thing. That is the one Sachiko received during her birthday, if you guys remember. Wow, she keep holding that thing. The skeleton figure. I think that is one from the Sachiko birthday. Yeah.
それは
I had this weird feeling that I've seen this object somewhere before. That's why I play Sachiko's birthday first. The spin-off or I don't know what that called, but still, that is a good game. Go check it out.
どこかで見たことあるような。思い出せない。
Though she was looking down at the ground a bit, slightly guilty and slightly guarded, Sachiko giggled slightly. Of course, that's why every Corpse Party game I would play, no matter what.
これ、幸子の宝物。
Of course, that's your pleasure. That is the first gift you receive from a live human. A big smile crept across her lips, and for a moment, she looked every bit the part of an ordinary little girl. I was confused. Sachiko placed her hand on the Book of Shadows. Fat loop. And the book spoke.
同じ日を繰り返せ。
Followed by Sachiko. We're gonna travel back in time. Suddenly I was in Yoshi's Yoshi's clinic. The very same clinic Nakashima and I had visited on that fateful day.
この人は、ヨシエさん。
I was viewing Sachiko's memory of an event from long ago. Yoshi was writing something in her journal.
アナグラムの解析を進めると、この本に書かれている術はすべて実体の伴わない理論でしかなかった。成功例に関する文献も全く存在しない。私はなんと愚かなことをしてしまったのだろう。最初から成功しないものに心血を注いでいたなんて。本の中身である涅槃が飛び出し、異空間を作ってしまうだけの失敗作の術。しかもそこに囚われた死者は生きていた証、存在の痕跡すらも消されてしまう。
Sachiko came to the room from the back. Her eyes met with Yoshi's and she smiled. However,
飛
since
び出
I
した
was
涅槃を抑え込むことができたため、
Sachiko stood obediently by her mother, wearing the white dress we had seen her on her in Heavenly Halls. Yoshi patted her on the head approvingly. Sachiko then coughed out a fine black mist but sucked it back into her mouth like a cup.
失われ、黒く消えたあの人の存在だけは取り戻せたのだ。
Let me guess, your husband. The face on the image was blacked out like those Seiko and the others. However, to my surprise, the black marking was slowly peeling itself away, revealing the features underneath. My vision slowly cleared, and when it did, amidst all the rumbling and shaking, I found myself back in Heavenly Host Elementary.
これは
Then promptly, Sachiko collapsed to the ground. Oh no, Sachiko! Don't tell me you're gonna disappear! Sachiko! Without thinking, I picked her up and held her limp, light body in my arms. She must have used up her spirit energy as she was clearly drained. She was breathing, but only very lightly. This is as far as I can go.
苦しさ。私、幸子に触れてる
Sachiko was real. She had to have been, or I would have been able to hold onto her like this. She seemed injured, but not in any traditional manner. There were cracks running through her body, each one emanating an unearthly blue, most gaseous light. Meanwhile, the screw itself was also cracking and breaking all around me, making incredible noises. The room above began to crumble away, providing a glimpse of the real world. And incredibly, the entity was hadn't spawned there yet.
戻ってるまだみんなが死ぬ前だ幸子しっかりして
あの時が戻せなかった。
幸子ありがとう偉いね頑張ったね
I can't really believe it. I just complimented Sachiko of all people on a job well done.
幸子、褒めてくれるの？
Her newly formed physical body was rapidly beginning to evaporate into mist. My voice was trembling, though I suspect it was less with fear and more with confusion.
すごいわ。あなたいいから。
She looked up into the sky, eyes beginning to well with tears. She was struggled to speak. Soon she wouldn't be able to at all.
謝りたかった。
She barely had any voice left but was preserving nonethelessly. This was clearly something she didn't want to leave unsaid no matter what.
許してもらえないのも分かってる。けど、謝りたかった。
And with that, she began full on crying. I couldn't help doing the same.
たくさんの人を殺しちゃった。幸子、いい子じゃない。褒められちゃいけない子。
The tears were streaming down my face now. Sachiko's voice was so mouthful, so genuine.
けれどあなたは今たくさんの人を救ったわ。
The massive earthquake shook the ground. Sachiko looked scared, so I patted her head and hugged her tightly. She then looked at me squarely in the eyes, gripping her calavera necklace tightly in her hands as if it were a rosary.
不思議だよ。正しいって分かったら成仏するの怖くない。
Bye bye, Ayumi. You're in this alone. Sachiko and the blue light alike both disappeared completely. She was gone. Yeah, no more Sachiko to protect you, Ayumi. The being I was hugging just moments ago no longer existed. All I could do was clench my face and more. The look on Sachiko's face when she asked if I was scared of dying kept flashing through my head. I kept my head hung for a moment and stood up and wiped the tears from my eyes. Accompanied the sound of the rumbling, one single entity wall now stood in the real world. The cycle was beginning anew.
見守っていて、幸子。篠崎の末裔の私。
Yeah, do your job. Don't tell me, Sachi! Of course it's not fair, you're older sister. You're not even living in this world. Chapter 7 determination done. To be continued. I believe in next chapter it's gonna be way hard. I think way hard because we got a lot of puzzle to be doing later. So yeah, thank you for watching my video. My video is just for fun. Don't take heart, brothers and sisters, okay? Adios e famosa. See you in the next episode.